world of innovation, we've been told to think outside the box. This is terrible advice. You don't want to think outside the box, you want to find a better box.
So my latest book is Pivotal, Creating Stability in an Uncertain World. And the reason I wrote this book is because certainly during the pandemic, one of the things that happened was there was a level of uncertainty, a level of confusion. Leaders didn't know which way to turn because there were new distractions and new opportunities pretty much every day. And so they were chasing whatever seemed to be next. And when I looked at the employees inside of organizations, they were confused because they were getting conflicting information. Every day, it seemed as though they were getting contradictory advice, contradictory information in terms of what they should be doing next. And so what I realized is we live in an environment of uncertainty and unpredictability, but that doesn't mean we can't have some level of stability in our workplace. It doesn't mean that we can't have some level of sanity in the work that we're doing. And so I wrote the book basically to be able to solve the problem of people not having clarity around what matters most to their organization and to them as an individual. So in Pivotal, one of the things I talk about is innovate where you differentiate. It is an important concept that I've been using for a long time with my clients. And this key theme, this importance of differentiation is critical because most people don't understand what differentiation is. When people think of differentiation, they tend to focus on the different part. But it's not about being different, it is actually about adding value to your customers and clients in a way that no one else does and no one else can. It is about being special, creating value in a way that is durable and will stand the test of time. And that to me is the most important theme, is to understand if you can figure out what your differentiator is, and you can innovate where you differentiate, that is put most of your energy into what has you be most powerful, you will create stability. Because we get so focused on what's changing, we never really spend time talking about what shouldn't change. What should stand the test of time? Where should we invest more deeply rather than always chasing what's next? Right now, every company is bombarded with distractions and opportunities, whether it was recovering from the pandemic, supply chain issues that we've had, inflationary and recession concerns, talent issues, and now we've got AI. So when you add all these things up, there is just an incredible amount of information and opportunities that are bombarding companies and people, and it's overwhelming. And so what I want people to be able to do is to be able to stop and figure out what's going to give them that stability, what's going to help them be more successful as an individual and as an organization as they move forward. One of my favorite stories in Pivotal is of a company called Radio Flyer. Now, if you had a little red wagon as a kid, you might know Radio Flyer because they were formed in 1917 and they create wagons. They're sort of one of the original creators of red wagons. Now, if you think about it, wagons are sort of a commodity. Anybody can create a wagon. There's a lot of very inexpensive red wagons on the market. But Radio Flyer realizes that their differentiator is not the wagon. In fact, their current CEO, who's the grandson of the original founder, Robert Passon, he goes around and talks to people about Radio Flyer. And he doesn't ask them, what do you think about the wagon? He says, when you hear Radio Flyer, what do you feel? What emotions come to you? And the first thing that happens in every single moment when somebody hears Radio Flyer, a smile comes across their face. And then they start to tell stories of their wagon, the wagon being a spaceship or a flying carpet, and they're going through the backyard and the wind is whipping through their hair, and they have these great memories. And what Robert realized is that they're not in the wagon business. They're in the smiles business. They're in the business of having people have these smiles and memories that last a lifetime. So for example, if you're somebody on the phone doing customer support, your goal is not to sell them another wagon or to solve their problem. It is to make sure that when they leave the call, they smile. They have a great memory of that call. When you go into their store in Chicago It's not about selling them more wagons, but it's about creating that lifetime of experience. So when they leave the store, yes, they're going to leave with a wagon, but they're going to have memories that last a lifetime. And they were a perfect example of a company that is differentiated because they realized it's not the product, it is the capability and emotion that they're able to create that's going to stand the test of time. And when every person in the organization understands that, they're able to deliver on that promise very powerfully every day to everyone. Pivotal is designed to help both organizations and individuals in pretty much the same way. Is if you can understand as an organization, as a team, and as an individual how you differentiate, you can have more power. So let's just talk for a moment about individuals. Individuals differentiate. We have particular skills, interests, hobbies, passions, experiences that make us special. And if we can take what makes us special and find ways of turning that into value creation for our employer or for our customers, that becomes a very powerful combination. So it is really around trying to figure out what is it that we do better than anyone else that creates the greatest value for others, that we are great at and that we love to do, that's going to stand the test of time. And that's an important message for both individuals and organizations because we need to be able to create value for others if we're going to be successful. So in the book, there's a lot of frameworks that are very powerful, but I'll tell you the simplest thing someone can do is ask themselves a very powerful question. What shouldn't change? What shouldn't change in our organization? What is it that we do better than anyone else where if we were to invest more deeply into that and to create greater value from that, we're going to be more successful? And I love a quote that Jeff Bezos from Amazon said in a Harvard Business Review interview. He said that people outside of Amazon are always asking me, what's going to change in the next 5 to 10 years? And he said, that's not the right question. They should be asking what's not going to change in the next 5 to 10 years. And he continues to say that at Amazon, we ask that question because if we can understand what doesn't change, we can build flywheels around those, and that will create dividends in the future. And I think in your organization, ask yourself, instead of what's next, what's new, ask yourself what's now. What do we do great that we know we can leverage in the future and start figuring out how to put more energy there, and also at the same time try to figure out how do you put less energy, lower investments into everything else. So if people are interested in my work, there's a few different ways to stay in touch with me. One is to go to theinnovationspeaker.com, and that gives you a list of all of the things that I do, my speeches, but it also gives you a list of different products. For example, I have something called Personality Poker. And Personality Poker is a card game I developed that helps people be able to figure out how they contribute to innovation and how they detract from innovation. So that's personalitypoker.com. So there's a whole bunch of different things that you can learn about my work, but the best place to go is just to my website, and you can stay in touch with me there. So one of the things which I've realized is I've been a speaker. I've had my own speaking business for the past 23 years. And I love speaking. For me, it's high energy and high value in a short amount of time. But what I've realized is that most speakers think that when they walk off the stage, their job is done. And what I've realized is that's the wrong mindset. My belief is when I walk off the stage, that's when we start the work. That's when the transformation can actually take place. It doesn't happen in the room. It's what happens after the conference that really makes the impact. And so what I've been working on for a while now is something called my Fast Innovation Mastery Program. And the Fast Innovation Mastery Program is a deep dive into my content, every step of my fast innovation process. And it's not training, it's an actual apprenticeship model where people bring problems that they can't solve, and we collaboratively solve those problems using my methodology. And by the time they're done with this program, not only have they learned new tools and applied those tools, but they've solved real problems and generated real ROI for the organization. So for me, that's the most interesting and fun thing I'm doing right now is actually that transformational work that happens after I leave the stage, rather than just focusing on the hour while I'm on the stage. So when we titled the book Pivotal, we did that intentionally because it's related to the word pivot. Now, one of the things which I find really fascinating, and I've been lucky enough to do some innovation work for my local basketball team, the Orlando Magic. And if you watch a basketball team, and I actually have a basketball here that I always carry around with me because I think it's such a great metaphor. So if you follow basketball, you'll know that there's a move in basketball called a pivot. And it's the same term that we use in business. Basically in basketball, you've got a foot that's moving around in circles. And the same thing is true when we are pivoting in business. What we're doing is we're shifting direction. Pandemic hit. Okay, we have to change direction. Inflation, change direction. Supply chain issues, change direction. AI, change direction. Now here's the fascinating thing, is just as in basketball, even in business, one of the things we're always focused on is the foot that's moving, the foot that's spinning. We never recognize the fact that there is a foot that doesn't move. And the purpose of being pivotal is to focus on that foot that doesn't move. I call it the planted foot. And if we spend our time actually asking ourselves, how do we create that stability, that level of understanding of what needs to happen in our organization to be powerful moving forward, it gives us the ability to pivot when necessary. So it's not about just agility, it is about stability, then agility. And what ends up happening is most organizations, they tend to be pivoting around in circles, getting dizzy, and they're pivoting on quicksand because they don't have a stable foundation. So the book Pivotal is about that planted foot. It is about not moving. It is about what creates that level of stability so that we do have the power when we need to shift in the future. So depth is a really critical word when it comes to being pivotal, because depth is not just what gives you stability, but gives you value creation. And the way I think about depth is in terms of the value we create for others. Now, if we're trying to increase revenues, we can increase revenues by getting more customers. But sometimes the best way to increase revenues is to create more value for our existing customers. So, for example, I'm always asking myself, what is it that I do? And a lot of times people say, well, I'm a keynote speaker and I get on stages, but that is limiting in some respects. So I've stepped back many years back and I said, maybe I'm not a keynote speaker. I'm an innovation expert who solves business problems. And I do that through speaking, but I also do it through training, workshops, advisory work, my mastery program. And now what I'm able to do is, instead of having to do, let's say, 50 speeches a year, I could do 20 speeches a year and then have a half dozen deeper dive clients where I create greater value. And for me, it's great because I have fewer clients. I'm doing less time selling, which is maybe not my favorite thing. But for my clients, it's fantastic because they get deeper, better, more powerful results. And so depth to me is the key. If you can figure out how you create value and expand upon that, you will become more valuable, you'll become pivotal. And the dictionary definition of pivotal is to become irreplaceable or of crucial importance. And isn't that what we all want? The Innovation Targeting Matrix is a framework, a tool that I developed actually over 20 years ago, and I've used it with countless organizations. And it might be my simplest, yet my most powerful framework. And the essence of the Innovation Targeting Matrix is to say that all work that everyone does in every organization falls into one of three categories. Now, before I talk about the three categories, I just want to say that these are work activities. These are tasks. They are not people, they are not jobs, they're not roles, they're not functions, they're not departments. These are activities. Every person in every organization, in every department does a combination of all three. So in the Innovation Targeting Matrix, we say there's work that is done that is support in nature. And support work supports the business. That is, it creates internal value, but it doesn't create customer value. Your customers wouldn't pay for it. Having the world's best payroll system, for example, your customers don't care. Your employees care because they want to be paid, but they also don't care that you have the world's best system. It just has to work. So for most organizations, something that is support should either be outsourced or, I would argue in some cases, eliminated. Meetings. Most meetings are actually support in nature. Your customers don't care about it. It doesn't create value for them in many cases. How do we eliminate it or optimize it or minimize it? But it's the next two levels of the innovation targeting matrix that become more interesting. There are activities that are core in nature. Now, core work, this is not the reason why someone does business with you, but if you get it wrong, it will be the reason why someone leaves. These are the table stakes. These are the expectations. If you are in the hotel business and you don't have Wi-Fi that works, if you don't have food that's edible, if you don't have clean rooms, well, that's not going to be good for your customers. They will leave, but just because you have a clean room doesn't mean somebody's going to stay with you. So for anything that is core in nature, we need it to work really, really well, but it's not our differentiator. So what we want to do is potentially partner with a third party who does this exceptionally well. Or maybe we want to use technology or optimization techniques or proven practices. There's a lot of different ways, but the goal is you don't innovate your core, you just make sure it works. And then the third level are differentiators. And you want to innovate where you differentiate. And if you can figure out what you do better than anyone else, that stands the test of time, that creates the greatest value, and you put your energies there, you're going to get the greatest returns. Now, the thing that I find fascinating though is that most organizations invest way too heavily in core and not enough in differentiating. And so in using the innovation targeting matrix, we're able to reallocate our investments so that we're putting more energy into differentiators and we're finding different strategies for anything that is core or support. In Pivotal, I talk about the 5 Ds of differentiation. And these are the 5 attributes you must have to be differentiated. Now again, being different is not the same as being differentiated. The first 2 Ds are around today. You need these in place in order for you to be differentiated today. And the first one is distinctive. And that's sort of the different and differentiated. You need to do something that not everyone else is doing. It's something that you do that no one else is doing. But equally, we need to be desirable. That is, what we do has to create value. And in a lot of cases, organizations get so focused on we're different that they forget that people don't care that they're different. So that second D is critically important because that's the one that gives you the value creation. Now, value also goes 2 ways. There is desirable externally, that is your customers and clients value what you're doing, but there's also desirable internally, which means that it creates value for the organization. Doing something that your customers love that has you end up going bankrupt, well, that's not very good. So those first 2 Ds, though, are just about today. The second 2 Ds are about tomorrow and the future. And they are durable and dynamic. Durable means that what makes you distinctive today will remain distinctive tomorrow. That is, it's hard to replicate, it's hard to copy. Technology, products rarely are distinctive truly because they're not durable. People can copy them, people can replicate them. So the first 3 Ds, these are sort of the 3 legs of the stool that we need now. We need something that is distinctive, we need something that is desirable, and it has to be durable. And when we have those 3, we have the planted foot, we have that stability, we have that foundation on which we can then change and pivot in the future. Which leads us to the 4th D, which is dynamic. What you offer may be desirable today, but will it be desirable tomorrow? And it's not just about new technologies and disruptive technologies like AI, but it's also behavior changes. People are going to want they have different expectations. People want things that aren't going to impact the environment, for example, or smoking and sugary foods and things like that. People have these shifts, and so we need to be able to shift with the market. We need to create things that are desirable, not just today, but what's going to be desirable tomorrow. So we have those 4 Ds, and then the last D is to be disseminated. And the disseminated basically means that we need to share it with the world. And the first part of that is to share it internally. Every person in your organization needs to understand what your organization's differentiator is, what the team's differentiators are, and what we as an individual can do to differentiate ourselves, and how we then can contribute to the differentiator of the organization and team. And our goal here is to make sure that we've created a culture where every person understands what the differentiator is and how they contribute to it. Once we have that in place, now we will disseminate externally. And basically that means we need to make sure we're not the world's best kept secret. We need to share what we do. We need to share our differentiator. And just as you want to innovate where you differentiate, when it comes to selling and marketing, you want to sell and market where you differentiate. You don't want to focus on all of your core activities, the expectations of the market. They really want to hear, what do you do better than anyone else that's going to create distinctive value for me in a way that no one else can and no one else ever will. A lot of organizations are so enamored with pivoting and they're changing direction, and what ends up happening is we dissipate our energies. And a lot of times when we think about innovation, we think, well, it's about the quantity of ideas. And in the case of business, maybe it's the number of projects that we're working on. But the reality is success comes from a laser focus on what matters most. So it's not just about solving problems, it's about knowing which problems to solve. Which are the biggest opportunities? Which are the best ways for us to create the greatest value externally and internally? And so when we're pivoting nonstop, not only do we get dizzy because we're spinning around in circles, but at the same time, we are dissipating our energies. We don't have clarity of focus. And therefore, no one in our organization knows what's next and what's now. What do they need to do today? Because they're always sort of focused on 3 steps ahead. And that's not good for the organization. So when you can stop, when you can pause, and when you can ask yourself, what's our differentiator and where should we be doubling down? It has a huge impact, not just on the bottom line, but it has a huge impact on the culture of your organization, and it also has an incredible impact on the morale of your employees, because instead of being burned out and stressed out, they now have clarity. And here's the thing I know is when people don't feel like they have clarity, and when they don't feel like they're adding value, they will become disengaged and they will leave. Therefore, the perpetual pivoting is something which causes not just an economic issue, but it causes an issue with your organization and employees. So in the book, I talk about a company called Otis. They're in the elevator business. And I love this company because, well, when you think about it, their business used to be, we manufacture elevators. And one of the things that they realized is that's limiting. That's limiting. They're not elevator manufacturers. They are experts in elevators. And so they asked themselves, how can we create more value for our customers? And they realized, well, it's not just about the manufacturing of the elevator or the installation of the elevator, it is the servicing of the elevator. And by the way, we can service anybody's elevators, not just ours at Otis, but any manufacturer. And as they started to go deep, now this is not a pivot, because pivots tend to be a change in strategy, a change in direction where you aren't leveraging what makes you great. They were great always at elevators. They were experts in elevators. And all they did was they went deeper. They went deeper into value creation and what they did best. And now the most profitable part of the business by far is the service business. Their ability to go into buildings and service elevators is now where they make most of their money. So I love that example because anytime you think that you can't add more value, maybe it's because you think you haven't taken the time to define your business properly. If you can step back and actually say, what business am I really in a lot of cases, we can go deeper. And again, it's about depth. It's not about change, it's about depth. That's the key to being pivotal. One of the big issues that I hear from most organizations is we can barely keep up with the work we have to do today. How can we think about tomorrow? How can we innovate? How can we do things differently when we don't have the resources? Well, the reality is, and this is the case with any innovation, is when you state something as a fact, for example, we do not have the resources to innovate to deal with future changes, well, you're lost. You can't do anything about it. So one of the key techniques that I like, super simple, is to reframe any concern or a fact or statement as a question. Instead of saying, we can't innovate in the future, it's like, how can we get the resources? How can we get the time? How can we get the money to be able to innovate? And in a lot of cases, the key to this comes in a belief that most organizations have that's wrong. Most organizations believe we need to be able to do more with less. That is, we need to get more work done with fewer people. And that is the wrong mindset. There's no leverage in that. That's just basically saying people need to go faster, work harder. I find the key is to actually figure out how can we do less and get more. That's all around leverage. And if we can do less and get more, now we can create time, we can create money, we can create resources. And if you use the innovation targeting matrix to say, well, what are we doing that's core? If you have 100 people trying to create a custom solution for something that's core, you're probably using them incorrectly. Find a third party who already does this for you and take those 100 people and put them onto your differentiator. So it's not a question of being able to serve your current needs and your future needs. It's how do we do both? And the key to that is through laser focus of understanding where you differentiate and then to innovate where you differentiate. When trying to discover your differentiator, yes, you can use the 5 Ds, but it's also important to recognize that sometimes we're too close. We're too close to our business, to our customers, to our industry to be objective. So I always find it useful that if you want to find your differentiator, engage a third party, someone who's objective, someone who hasn't had the depth of experiences in your industry with your customers and your competitors. So for example, in my business, I hired a branding company and I asked them to find out what my differentiator is. What makes me different from the hundreds of innovation speakers out there? Now, I could guess, but they went out, did the research, and they talked to my clients. And that's the key, is this isn't just sitting around in a conference room saying, how do we differentiate? But rather, talking to the market, talking to your current clients, your past clients, people who've never done business with you, and asking them, why do you do business with me? Or why haven't you done business with me, and why do you work with someone else? What is it that you expect? And from there, you can start to triangulate what makes you special. What is your differentiator? But again, a lot of cases, it is most helpful to have someone outside your organization to do that work for you, because they can be a little more objective in terms of the questions they ask and the way they synthesize the data. So right now, AI is on everybody's lips. Everybody's talking about AI. If I'm on a call with innovators, they're always saying, what's the role of AI? And I want to go back to something that I talked about earlier, which is the innovation targeting matrix. And I talked about the 3 levels of activities: support, core, and differentiating. Support creates internal value, but not customer value. Core are the table stakes. They're expectations, but aren't differentiators. And our differentiator is obviously what makes us special. Now, a lot of companies feel like AI is going to be their differentiator. And I really strongly believe that will not be the case, because AI is evolving so fast that unless you're really willing to spend billions of dollars in it, like some of the consulting firms are, you will never be the best at AI. So for most organizations, AI, they're table stakes, they're core. Your customers are going to expect that your solutions have AI. This is not, hey, we have AI, so we're special. No, no, no. This is an expectation, and you have to have AI as part of your solution. So this becomes really critical. Now, if you think about it, you could be spending all of your time understanding AI, but we have one tool in our toolkit that can help us with this. And again, it's the innovation targeting matrix. It is a simple model, but it is a game changer for how you think about investments. So you could say for support work, for example, payroll, well, we need AI in our solutions. We need to use AI for our support work. What if instead you identified for your support work, again, the things that create internal value, you found partners that already integrated AI into their solutions. Now you don't have to think about it. You get AI solutions without you having to understand AI. Same thing for core. Why would you want to have the world's best core, which are the expectations, when there's probably a third party that already handles that? And that third party will take care of all of the AI integration into their solutions. So what that basically means now is, from a technology perspective, from an AI perspective, you need to focus on your differentiator. And again, because AI won't be a differentiator, focus on partnering with an organization that has AI as their differentiator. It's all they do, it's all they think about. This process is going to allow you to get all of the value from AI without having to make all of the investment that a lot of companies are doing right now, where they're trying to integrate AI into everything that they do, every task, every day, as opposed to saying, how do we identify the best uses and then find the best partners who already have AI integrated solutions. The future of work is a topic that a lot of my clients are thinking about, and it's going to evolve, and quite honestly, I don't have any predictions. Again, the book is called Creating Stability in an Uncertain World, because we're never going to have certainty, we're never going to have predictability, and anybody who tells you they can predict the future, I'm a little skeptical. So the future of work is a tough one, but here's what I would say is the key to anything that is unpredictable, when you can't create stability, is to try experimentation. And that to me is always what is the best. When there's a high level of uncertainty, don't create these large projects which you start to implement, but rather do small, scalable experiments where you test out your hypotheses. And for the future of work, well, you need to ask yourself some important questions. Like, first of all, what is the role of AI in our future of work? How can we best leverage it? How can we best take advantage of it? And I would say, how can we best take advantage of AI without it taking over our business? So these are the types of questions that organizations need to ask when it comes to, future of work. In some respects, is all around, is it hybrid? Is it in person? Is it virtual? It's all of this, all of these things. But you need to figure out what works for you. And I guess what I would say is the most important thing to recognize, like one of my books is called Best Practices Are Stupid. And the reason why I created that book is because everybody seems to think there is an answer. There is no answer for the future of work. It's going to depend on your culture, on your context, on your people, on your industry. There's so many different factors. And so anytime somebody says, this is what you should do, I would have you be skeptical. I would have you ask yourself, is this really right for us? Is this right for our organization, for our culture, for our values? What works for one organization may not work for you. And I think even when it comes to the future of work, you need to use that level of skepticism. So my FAST innovation model is an acronym. FAST stands for Focus, Ask, Shift, Test. And they are the 4 key steps of the innovation process. And the first one, focus, is all around what's in the book Pivotal. It's about innovate where you differentiate. It's not about solving problems, but rather knowing which problems to solve. The second step is the ask step. And one of the things we tend to do is look for answers, but in fact what we want are better questions. And that ask step is really about making sure we are reframing the problem in a way that allows us to develop better solutions. And all that content comes from my previous book, Invisible Solutions. Because if we ask better questions, we will get better solutions. Which then leads us to the S part, which is shift. This is where we really start to find solutions. And the reason why I call it shift rather than solve is because in most cases, expertise is the enemy of innovation. Expertise is the enemy of innovation. Our past experiences limit our ability to see new, different, and better futures. And so we need to shift our mindset. And what we know is sometimes the best solutions don't come from experts, somebody in our industry or our area of expertise, but rather it comes from somebody outside of our industry, from a different discipline. And so that shift step is really important to find better solutions. And then finally, test. is all around experimentation. We're not implementing projects, we're experimenting. And the reason why innovation often fails is because we haven't done proper experimentation. Now, when we look at the fast innovation model, it's 4 steps. What I find fascinating though is most of my clients start at the 3rd step, the shift, the solution step. Give me your ideas. Give me your solutions. Let's do a hackathon. It's always about the answer, but it's the first 2 steps that move us in the right direction. What is most important? What problems should we be focused on? Instead of trying to solve every problem, what are the ones that if we solve them are going to have the greatest impact? And then let's reframe them, because sometimes the problem we think we're solving really isn't the right problem. And so those 4 steps are critical. Now, they're not sequential. They tend to be iterative. We move in and out of them. But that's the general idea behind the fast innovation model. In the pivotal book, I have my 5 Ds, and I think there's 3 that I think are very valuable for us as individuals to consider. And they are the distinctive, desirable, and durable. And don't look at it from an organization perspective, look at it from your perspective. Like, what is it that you do that is distinctive? What do you do better than anyone else? And it's not just your work and your skills, but your hobbies. I'm a magician, or I'm a wannabe magician. I love magic, but that helps me understand the process of solving problems differently than others. I'm a musician. I'm a sax player. That gives me some extra tools. So yes, I have my innovation background. I'm an engineer, but there's a number of other things that make me distinctive that could be useful. How can I leverage all those? Then if I look at what's desirable, what I do has to create value for the world. I might have some fun things that I do that I love to do, but if nobody cares, if it doesn't create value for others, then I'm not going to be able to make a living. But at the same time, it has to be internally desirable. I have to love it. If I don't love what I'm doing, it will be work. It will be difficult, and the world will know it, and therefore it's not going to seem like it's a natural expression of who I am. So when I get those together, when I get what I do that's distinctive, internally desirable that I love, and externally desirable that creates value, and I marry that with durable, which means that others can't do it. They might want to, but they can't because it's unique to me and no person or technology will replace me. Now I've got that intersection of what makes me great, what's going to create the greatest value. I'm going to have the most fun doing it. And that to me is so key for everyone, is to understand the intersection of those. So if you want to learn more about the Pivotal Book, go to thepivotalbook.com. That's the best way to find more, and you can buy it pretty much anywhere in the world through any of the regular retailers that sell books. And I would also say that if you want to book me, contact Speakers Associates, because, well, that's the best place to go. They're differentiated in what they do and getting you the best speakers for your event. And I would say that's the best place for you to go to get access to me.